This is one of their mobile kitchens that they actually...
Is that even some, what I call habitual...
Beautiful Stop and Shop in the Wilton. Penalty, but it was actually a tax, and that it... Absolutely. What's the name of the show? And welcome once again to the Marty Heiser Show. We are so glad you're here. We've got an interesting guest tonight. We got a lot to talk about. We have a brand new year. It's 2017. We're going to have a new president that's going to be inaugurated, and there's a lot to look forward to. The stock market is going up. Economic optimism seems to be peaking. And I just like having a new daytimer with all blank dates, and it just seems like it's full of opportunity. So I'm pretty excited about it. Now, today, one thing you'll learn about this TV show, if there's a video out there that might be controversial or a little upsetting, we will play it for you. It's a visual medium. I don't get any money to do this show. I have no fear of being fired in that sense, although I want to be professional about this because we are professional broadcasters. But if there's something coming up, we're going to play it for you. If you haven't heard of it yet, there's this video out there of 4 African American individuals that are torturing a special needs young man, scalping him, kind of beating him up, and making racial epithets towards him for being white, for being a Trump supporter. And this is following a pattern that we've seen. There's another video that was out there maybe a month or so ago of a white man that's being pulled out of his car by some black young men and beaten because he supported Donald Trump. Now you say, hey, here's a white guy on a cable access TV show. He's going to show these videos. They're very inflammatory. He must be a racist. But if you watch this show at all, or you just happen to come upon the show, when a white cop shot someone up in a black African-American man and he bled out in front of his girlfriend in a car in Minnesota, we showed that video as well. And we also showed the video of a black man being shot in front of a convenience store down in Louisiana by an African-American cop. We believe in the First Amendment. We believe that information is a good antiseptic. We believe that sunlight is important, and we're going to play these things. So if there are children around and they're easily offended, you might want to move them away. This is just a snippet from the video of the young people that kidnapped a special needs Caucasian young man and held him against his will for upwards of a day or 2 days, depending on who you talk to. It's a pretty sordid video, but you'll get the feel for it.
Take it easy, bitch. Who on this bitch?
Yeah,
my sister's up there with y'all, dude.
nigga, thinking it's slight.
Oh, man.
Thinking shit, bitch ass, boy.
Fuck you talking about this
Shit,
whole ass,
sweet, boy.
pancake ass, rabbit ass nigga. Fuck, cut his motherfucking head off.
Shit, boy.
Damn, you cut his shit.
Put a whole patch out of this shit, boy.
Why you do that?
Ain't no blood on the blade, though.
Bitch ass nigga.
Give a fuck about that shit.
That was you did. Fuck Donald Trump.
Oh, my brother Greg, I never.
Watch this knock your ass the fuck out right now, nigga. Stand up, boy. Stand up, boy. Stand up, boy. You better figure it out.
What y'all know,
Shit,
bro?
nigga.
Get the fuck. Nah, no shit, though.
Boy, no.
Man, shit your bitch ass.
Bitch ass down, bro.
Stand the fuck up right now, boy. Get the fuck
Your ass
out.
tweaking.
Stand the fuck up.
So they had this on live chat with on Facebook, which if I had my son around or a young person, they would tell me how to do this, how to do the live chat. But that's what they did, and here's a little bit more of it.
The new one. Free J-Mo. Fucking you talking about. Got to.
The realest stone ever on my life. He a real stone. Y'all niggas tweaking.
Just put a brick on the gas.
Fuck it to me. But motherfuckers are,
Hey, y'all.
he
You
coming
better- yo,
back.
hey, y'all.
Fuck it to me. He's not leaving no more.
Hey, y'all. Rest in peace, my
Y'all see
aunt.
this nigga? Hey, this nigga right here, he represent Trump.
This PPG Hothead. Hey, this PPG Hothead speaking. Y'all see this nigga right here? We finna put this nigga in the trunk, and we finna put a brick on the gas and let that bitch. You feel me?
You got to watch the Chicago
Put
news.
a brick on the gas. You feel me? Look at him. Tied up. Bitch ass nigga. I'm gonna let her talk to y'all.
See, motherfuckers drunk as hell. Y'all don't even know how.
So these 4 young people did this, and it does seem to follow a pattern. The next video you'll see, it's a short video as well. Just listen for Trump and the fact that he's white and he's a supporter of Trump, and this happened.
When you vote Trump, damn it. You voted Trump! You voted Trump! Yeah! Yeah, he voted Trump! Yeah! I gotta do that Damn. Beat his ass! Don't vote Trump! Don't vote Trump! Don't vote Trump! Yeah, this shit did it. Still looks good. Hey, y'all be gone though. Wait, take the lighter, police in the car.
So that's in my hometown. I grew up outside of Chicago. Chicago during the Obama administration had upwards of 4,000 murders. The Chicago Police Department now is suffering from what's called the Ferguson effect, where law and order and police are pulling back from these neighborhoods. And it would seem, based on these videos and the crime statistics, that there's been a lawlessness out there. I don't relish showing these videos, but you'll never see this on the mainstream media. Never. Because it doesn't follow the narrative, doesn't allow for the victimhood of minority communities. Well, 30% of millennial African Americans voted for Donald Trump. Donald Trump said, "What the hell do you have to lose?" Hopefully there'll be a new day that's coming out, and hopefully we'll see some of these videos limited. Before we get to our guest, we have a caller. Caller, do you agree with what unfolded on those videos?
Marty, you must be a loving Christian filled with hate, aren't you? For you to put on videos like that shows how full of hate you really are. I mean, it's sad. It's sad that you've stooped to such a level to try to promote your agenda.
What's his question?
I mean, Marty, let's be honest with you. This is as low as it goes. I'm not...
So I should have not shown those videos? Is that what you're saying?
Marty, what you're trying to do is you're trying to incite people. You're trying to piss them off by promoting this stuff.
Just out of curiosity, did you watch the show when we showed the videos of African Americans that had been shot by police and were bleeding out? Did you see those shows?
Marty,
It's a pretty easy question. Did you see those shows? It's okay to say no.
Yeah, but two wrongs don't make a right.
Okay, so that was wrong as well. Is that what you're saying?
Marty, let's talk about the issues. What is your buddy, Mr. Trump, going to do to make America sick again? This is what we want to know. How is this bonehead going to vote?
Well, it's interesting you say the word sick because many people that watch those videos would say it is sick. And to have political discord devolve to the point where you're getting pulled out of your car on the streets of America and beaten up because they assume you voted for someone? Imagine if a Republican did that and it was reversed, the outcry. You won't see these videos anywhere else. But thank you for the call. I got to get to my guest, but feel free to call back. Okay, don't mean to bum everyone else out, but we are joined this evening by State Senator Joe Markley. I want to thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure. Good to
And
see you.
and Dave
Third
Streit.
choice for the night, Dave Streit.
Not at all third choice. I do feel compelled, and it's not something that I'm happy about, but on this show, I will not censor myself on issues that may be volatile from one end of the spectrum or another. I just won't.
Didn't a major network steal some title about fair and balanced? Did they get that from you?
No, I
think they might have.
I don't know.
But you are fair and balanced. You show both sides.
I am not
If people
afraid.
can't handle the truth, that's their problem.
It's the video. It's there. It speaks for itself. Their running commentary speaks for itself. And draw what conclusions you are. But I will not censor myself from this type of thing. It's out there, and you saw it, and you're adults, and process it as you will. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, it's incredibly sad and disturbing. And of course, the problem in the world is that we're in this kind of tit-for-tat situation where, because the narrative has been established of white attacks on blacks, that we feel like, well, in fairness, we got to show the other side of it. And obviously the tragedy is anybody's attacking anybody. It doesn't matter what color they are. Unfortunately, it's all broken down into that. I mean, it shouldn't be a story about what color was the policeman, what color was the kid, what color were the assailants, but it's been made into a narrative about color by the other side. That has not been. I really do feel that conservatives truly believe that we should have a colorblind society. And I don't think that if the subject were to be let rest at this point, I don't think we're that far from it. I think what's changed tremendously in my lifetime, and I think the election of Barack Obama showed how much it was changed, something that I can't imagine happening in 1964.
Right.
And yet there's an obsession with keeping that narrative alive. And Obama himself, the one thing I hoped would happen when Obama was elected was that it would promote a kind of a racial healing. And instead we are in the worst situation now on that subject that I can remember, really, that I've ever felt. I mean, maybe when I was a kid, but I wasn't as aware of it. But certainly since I've been a sentient adult, the worst sense of racial division that I've felt. And the fact that, you know, it's only natural when you have this constant exposure to accusations of white racism that you come back and say, no, bad things happen on both sides. But the whole problem is that we look at it in racial terms to begin with. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be, you know, hey, the number one, if you wanted to go out and find, there's probably more videos of blacks attacking blacks than anything else going on. And that's the biggest tragedy that we've got, is black on black violence.
So do you think this should be labeled a hate crime? And what do you think about the label of a hate crime?
Well, the whole idea of a hate crime, again, goes back to this division of let's look at crime on the basis of what color, what sex or gender or whatever you want to call it, or religion or whatever the person that's the victim of the crime is.
So
every crime is a hate crime. It's like every gun is an assault weapon in a way, if you want to use it that way. If you're attacking somebody, it's out of hostility.
So it perpetuates division.
It perpetuates the division, exactly, and it shouldn't exist as a special category of crime. It's not. That's ludicrous.
That was the case Bush made, but he got it hammered down his throat. You know, he had to support this notion there's a hate crime, and like he said, every crime is based in hate. So
I mean, it's pretty. I mean, hate crime is on the books. The DA in Chicago is naming this a hate crime. There's 4 individuals that I guess are arrested now. I can't imagine the thinking behind doing this crime and posting it on a Facebook video and assuming there aren't going to be any consequences for it.
Think of the level of lawlessness.
The law is unbelievable.
You know,
and it just seems like there's been 8 years of this coming from the highest office in our land. And it started with those Cambridge police. You know, it's interesting because my brother's a policeman, and he's a liberal. He's a liberal Democrat. Voted for Obama every time he could. But he told me, he said on that case with the Cambridge policeman, the radio call to the officer was a unidentified black man has a breaking and robbery in progress at such and such an address. And so the squad car pulls up, sees a black man climbing through the window of said property and puts the man under arrest and asks for identification. And this is viewed as behaving stupidly by our Supreme Commander-in-Chief in the United States. And from there, it goes on from there. Ferguson, riots in Baltimore, in all these places, 5 cops shot dead in Dallas. This sense of lawlessness and this sense of lack of respect, an all-time record number of policemen were shot and killed on the job this year. And there's a tendency to look at it and say that, as Commander-in-Chief, you set the tone. And this sense of victimhood and the sense of that the police are after you, I don't know. I've had shows on this. We've had young African Americans on. We have NAACP on. We've had police on to talk about this. But I don't know. I see a video like that and it just infuriates me.
To Senator Joe's point, the first person that accuses the other person of being a racist wins. And the Democrats are constantly accusing the Republicans of being the racists. And at some point, you have to respond to that and just deny it. I mean, for 8 years, the left has tried to tie the Tea Party to the KKK. Yeah. And not a single one of these Tea Party rallies has there ever been a recorded incident of anything racial taking place.
Yeah.
Right.
We went out there with a camera, and we couldn't find a white person.
Well, half the people with us were
immigrants, and some shade of the beautiful spectrum that is humanity.
Yeah.
From India, from Africa. More often than not, they're first generation, second generation immigrants. And we open our show. We have interviews at Tea Party rallies in Stanford, and they're all African Americans.
Again, to Joe's point, you have to hit back at this. For example, Chuck Schumer came out in the last week and said some of the dumbest things I've ever heard a person say. For example, we'll only support Trump if he completely abandons the Republicans. Really a dumb thing. Finally, Trump got fed up this week, and today he comes out and says, look, you're talking about the chief clown, all right?
Yeah.
Totally dismissed him. You've got to hit back at that stuff, and Trump's been effective.
I think the cry of racism, it's the old story about crying wolf. I think it just has no strength anymore. And is this an isolated incident? I guess it was, on these videos, but there it is. But the racism expressed by this, the racism expressed by pulling the white guy out of the car and beating him, by calling him a white guy, calling him a Trump supporter, beating him, scalping him, holding this guy against his will. It's just obscene. And it's not us projecting, wow, these guys must be doing it because it's white. They're claiming it. They're bragging about it. You're white, you're a Trump supporter, you're a bad guy. It's just,
the heart of equal treatment is to say that nobody is entitled to break the law. Nobody is entitled to lawless behavior.
Yeah.
And one of the problems with this politics of resentment is the idea that people become, you say, well, because of this situation, because of this or because of that, they're entitled to do this. I thought that one of the craziest examples we had here locally was this fellow down at Yale that smashed the stained glass window because it showed a couple of presumably slaves working in the field. And he was an employee. They didn't press charges against him, but they fired him. Yeah. And then they of course rallied to force him to give the job back to the guy. And you say, you can't destroy property because it offends you. Yeah. I think okay, the next time they have a show down at Yale that has a piece of art that I don't like, which has happened in some of these contemporary art exhibits, am I entitled then to deface this piece of art? Yeah. I doubt that Yale would agree about that. But that's what you open the door for. And you open the door again for tit for tat. You say, well, if they can do that, I can do this. And it's a terrible world to get into with that.
Yeah, and I think, I think you're right in the sense that I don't think we're as racist a country as somehow the politicians, particularly on the left, would like you to think. Because the whole campaign we just had with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, the left was desperately trying to go to the women. Aren't you offended? Aren't you offended? Yeah. Look at this video. Look what he said. Oh, it was terrible. Aren't you offended? They were desperately trying to go to African American communities, to the Mexican community. Aren't you offended? He called you all racist. Aren't you offended? And they're pleading and yearning for these dividing different groups into color and culture and saying, please be offended, because that's the basis of our power. And you know what America said? America said, listen, I'm not, all this KKK talk, all that talk, I'm not listening to that. I'm going to vote for Trump because I think he has a better offer. And that's why all of a sudden Donald Trump gets more votes than Mitt Romney does from the Hispanic community. He gets more votes from the black community than John McCain did. And that is what, to a large degree, put him over the top.
Yeah, and he carried counties. The swing counties were counties that had been for Obama before and went to Trump. And I'll tell you, I think that a lot of conservatives, I think you would find very few conservative Republicans who would say, I wouldn't have voted for Condoleezza Rice if she had been a candidate. And holy smokes, all you can say is, well, she's not a legitimate African American. But you can't deny that. In fact, the popularity of Ben Carson, I think in a lot of ways, was because people were so delighted to have a black conservative candidate that they liked, that they responded to, that it actually is helpful. And that's certainly been the case in Connecticut politics. I feel like when we have had black Republican candidates, the party
Gary Frank, right?
Yeah, well, Gary Frank, since almost before my time or before the time, but since I've been back these last few years, the ones that have come forward have really been embraced almost irrationally because we're so happy to say, look, of course we can get behind somebody.
But I just think, even in the African American community, I don't think they're as racist as you think. But you'll see the media, the mainstream media, is desperate for that. Hey, the KKK is supporting Trump. Aren't you offended? Aren't you offended? Look at what happened on this. I just love this.
We're all Americans. I think we need to stop with all the racist stuff and the race being.
Hold on 1 second. Okay. Got this high-tech thing.
Gabe Gutierrez, actually, Jacob, one of our reporters, and I don't want to quote the wrong reporter here, was just out at the Trump campaign. I think we have the sound, and my team will have to tell me, where they spoke with some Trump supporters. Let's play what they said.
David Duke and people like that, they come out from under the rocks all the time around this time this year. It got nothing to do with Donald Trump. We're all Americans. I think we need to stop with all the racist stuff and the race baiting. Like me and my friend right here, we just met today, we was talking. We got to stop with the racist stuff and this, that. We all Americans, man, and nobody paying David Duke no mind.
Clearly, let me just be clear here. Obviously, the majority of Donald Trump supporters are not African American. I don't know how many African Americans were in that building, but that is one person that we have chosen to cut that sound from.
I love
If
that.
it doesn't fit the narrative, they run from it.
That is what crestfallen liberal, journalists. Clearly, that's just, I get. Isn't that? I love that.
She's actually got no idea. She wasn't there. For all she knows, maybe they were a majority.
Sorry, we had the black guy queued up that hates Trump. Okay, let's go to the videotape. And then it goes to the guy, and he's like, "Look, we're all Americans. Every time the election comes around, they try to run this race stuff by us. I mean,
that is the whole. We're all Americans is the whole thing, and that's the whole idea of the country. And you can say, okay, when the country was set up, we didn't embrace this group or that group in a certain way. Okay, but the principle, the idea was to expand that out and to be all Americans, not to break ourselves down into more and more identities.
Rand Paul did a really good job about 4 years ago of starting to really peel back the onion and expose the Democratic Party for what they are. And racism, the history of racism in this country is 100% based in the Democratic Party. Right? The Democrats in the South, slavery, the Jim Crow laws, all the Democrats in the South. Being against private ownership of guns for blacks. It was the Republicans of the NRA that came to their rescue and said they have the rights too.
The big civil rights passed under Lyndon Johnson. It was because Republicans came over and voted. The Democrats, by and large, went against them on that.
Well, and the whole thing about abortion is pure racism. I mean, Margaret Sanger, let's eliminate the black race, and we're going to put abortion clinics in small black community, poor black communities.
Which
racism.
Ironically, may have helped cause Donald Trump to get elected.
100%.
Because there's millions and millions of African American children that have been aborted due to these progressive.
Well, that's why they want to open the border and restock the ranks.
Okay, caller, do you have a point or a question? But please, brevity is the soul of call-ins.
Marty, your whole show is about race and racism. and you're touting that you're not racist. I think you guys, the elevator doesn't go to the top floor with you, does it? Now, let's talk about something that is provable and measurable. I see you have a state senator sitting next to you.
We do.
I want to know specifically what he has to say, what his position is on global warming. First of all, if he agrees that the globe is getting warmer, what is he going to do to combat global warming as a state senator? And put his name up, will you, so I can Google him?
Absolutely. Senator Joe excellent question. Thank you for the call. I'm going to ignore the elevator doesn't go up to the top floor. I'm just going to get past that because that's me. I'm big-hearted. Senator Joe Markley, he's from the 16th Senatorial District here in Connecticut, representing, among others, Southington, Waterbury,
Wolcott, Prospect, and Cheshire.
Mark Lee.
Mark Lee. And please share your thoughts on global warming.
Do you live in fear of global warming?
That particular caller.
I have to say, as a state senator, we were talking about before the show how we might talk about some international topics, and I said it's a pleasure for me because I don't get to very often.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't spend a lot of time thinking about them because I spend so much time thinking about what I have to in the state of Connecticut.
Right.
And I suppose that's my feeling about global warming. I believe, I'll tell you, my personal experience is I would say that we have global weirding. I think that the weather is more bizarre than it was when I was a kid. Warmer sometimes, colder sometimes, more variable than it used to be. I see evidence of, so there's scientists saying X and there's scientists saying Y, and I have not entered into this conflict enough, being no scientist and having no confidence that I can choose between two scientists that have different opinions about it.
Right.
That's not a matter of trying to avoid the issue, it's a matter of where I'm going to spend my thought.
The perfect answer.
Well, I don't know if it's the perfect. Well, that's nice of you to say.
No, it is. It's exactly right. Because when they polled, going into the election, the list of the top 20 concerns Americans had, global warming was at the bottom of the heap.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. How do you get people worked up about global warming when the masses are moving south to get into warmer weather? Yeah. Now they don't, I mean, if it's real, and I don't believe it is real because I've spent a lot of time, with options and stuff regarding and writing derivatives around weather, it's not happening. But if it was, you don't have to move.
Yeah.
You can stay in New York and warm up.
Here we go. This is interesting. This is Time magazine cover from 1977. And it says...
That's the inconvenient truth, Marty.
Yeah, no, I know. It says, to survive the coming ice age. So that's when the left-wing press was all up in the lather about the coming ice age, the gap in the ozone and the...
Terrified people create demand for politicians.
So now, of course, it's worried about global warming, and they always refer to the one polar bear on a small ice thing. It kind of reminds you of some of those Christmas movies. Meanwhile, the polar bear population has never been bigger.
Right, it's exploding.
Exploding, tons of polar bears.
And the ice mass is exploding.
And the ice mass is also increasing. And it's interesting, I'm a bit of a nerd. Just this weekend I was watching a nature program on mammoths. Remember those mammoths, big woolly mammoths, big elephant, and they would climb all over, the polar ice caps, and they have, you can see all the tusks and all the bones, and some of them were fast frozen, and they found in their bellies more like tropical plants that were in their bellies. Now that means that there are periods of global cooling, called the Ice Age, global warming. There are ebbs and flows that happen all the time. You're a student of history during the Revolutionary War in the 1700s.
The Little Ice Age,
cold.
Yes.
The Little Ice Age, Valley Forge. Actually, the harbor in Manhattan was frozen over, and some of the troops could actually be ferried across the ice in wagons on New York Harbor, which rarely ever freezes. So anyways, it's interesting to see the ebb and flow of this. Of course, the left has taken global warming, even if it is warming a touch, and says it's all due to conservatives driving SUVs, and if you don't elect us and pay us more in taxes, we'll never get fixed. So we'll see. I think there's a different program. All right. All that is by way of preamble. We have the senator here. We want to talk quickly about a couple different things. The Senate is now 18-18. At long last, the Republicans and the Republicans are making a little bit of headway there. We have a budget, a $24 billion budget that you say over 2 years could have a shortfall of $3 billion. And you suspect the snake in the grass could be this concept of, hey, let's regionalize Connecticut. Not have 169 individual towns, but let's regionalize. Take something off of that and tell us what we need to know.
Well, let's talk about the regionalism first, since you came to it.
Okay.
This is, they keep finding the Trojan horses to get their ideas in. And the essential division in politics is, do you think we need more government or do we need less government?
Right.
That's what it comes down to. And we can argue about how much less government we need. We might differ about that even among the three of us, but I think all of us would say we've got too much government now. It's more than we can afford, and it's more than we can bear as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have it get off of us and stop trying to control everything we do. And stop trying to force us, like the global warming today. Do you believe this?
Are you a denier? Are you a global warming denier?
Let's go through everything I believe in. You can tell me whether I believe the right things or not. Let me believe what I want to believe. I'm an individual. Okay. So they can't say, oh, we want more government. So they say, gee, think of how inefficient it is that we have these 169 towns. Mm-hmm. And if we set up some regional things, we could have efficiencies and we could save money. And right away, there's an op-ed about it. And the first thing they go to is they say, what's an inefficiency? Oh, well, gee, every town has its own superintendent of schools. Well, take the towns I represent.
Yeah.
Wolcott and Waterbury are right next to each other. And I would guess that possibly a majority of the people in Wolcott moved there from Waterbury.
Right.
They are perfectly happy to pay whatever it costs, the $160,000 that they pay to have their own superintendent of schools, rather than have their school system run by Waterbury. And it's not an anti-Waterbury feeling. It's the fact that Waterbury has a different set of problems and ought to be able to be left to deal with their own problems, which are more than enough on their own, and let Wolcott, which has an excellent school system, continue to have a good school system. But the goal isn't to really have efficiencies and to get rid of, and if you got rid of the superintendent of schools of Wolcott, they would have, the regional would have the assistant superintendent for Wolcott.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd still end up with the same level of bureaucracy or more.
Sure.
They want to create a new layer of government. They've reached a point where they say, we can't expand state government, they're on to us, people are sick of it. And at the local level, to some extent, people have control over what happens.
Right.
But let's squeeze something in between. And the fact that you point to every other state, you say, well, gee, they have county government here and all these cities. Well, of course they have county government, because their towns are like, there was a town 50 miles of cornfield. Well, you grew up in Illinois. Once you got out of Chicago, in rural Illinois, what was the government for in between? Well, that was the county.
Yeah.
Okay. In Connecticut, 169 towns have bumped up against each other
for years.
For 200 years, the state's been full of towns. This is a perfectly good system for a little state like Connecticut, and Rhode Island too, which also does not have county government. They're trying to sneak it back in. And the other thing they're trying to accomplish is the cities have become basket cases. Poor Hartford is the mayor, who I don't think is a bad guy. He's a guy that he's an intelligent man who has walked into a miserable situation.
Right.
And he's walking around the Capitol and he's walking around the suburbs with a tin cup begging for some kind of relief.
Yeah.
And the idea is we've got to be able to we need to expand our government so that we can take that revenue out of the suburbs.
Right.
And this, as I've said, it's like a drowning man saying, I'm going down, and he's reaching out and grabbing who's ever around him. It's not going to save him. It's just going to pull down West Hartford and Glastonbury and everywhere else. He's getting a very bad reaction. And of course, part of this, it's all based on this idea of, well, look, how can Hartford be expected to sustain itself without getting money out of Glastonbury? Say, if we went back 100 years and you said, gee, shouldn't Hartford be allowed to tax Glastonbury? They'd say Hartford, with the banks and the insurance companies and the wealth, and Glastonbury, what's that? That's a bunch of farmers sitting out there. A successful city is rich.
Right.
An unsuccessful city is poor. There's nothing inherent in being a city that makes you poor. I want to say, is Manhattan needing, I think they do pretty well in some places where they still have some kind of industry, some kind of business. And that's the only thing that solves nothing solves the problems of the cities except to have employment there. That's what they need.
I have a bigger question, because this is
a bigger question.
A bigger question, because I mean, to look at it from 30,000 feet.
Yeah.
Connecticut, if what I read is true, we're one of 2 or 3 states in the country that's actually losing population.
That's right.
I think things came to a head when we lost General Electric. They actually left our state. And they didn't go to like some low-tax state like, North Carolina or Texas or Florida. They went to Massachusetts.
Right.
I mean, that's like losing your wife to your brother or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the worst.
Yeah,
and
not Richard Gere, that I can understand.
Yeah. And it's like, what the hell? I mean, I've studied, I've read what you put out there, I've seen what you're. Is there any hope for this state? Because right now I see all the wealth is leaving the state just as fast as it can. We have these state-controlled unions that seem to want to have pension plans that you can't even believe, and they seem to be sucking up all the money. You have an entitlement mentality with the governor, who's absolutely tied to these unions. Is there any hope? Give me some hope. Talk me up the ledge.
The hope is GE went to Massachusetts. Take that as a hopeful sign. The fact that not too many years ago, I would say there wasn't much to choose between Massachusetts and Connecticut.
Yeah.
Massachusetts has not made as many mistakes as profoundly and as consistently as Connecticut has.
Yeah.
And it's stabilized. I mean, that's the first thing we have to do is we have to stop moving in the wrong direction. Okay. If we stop moving in the wrong direction, a certain amount of healing will take place as a matter of course.
I mean, this is such a beautiful state.
It's a beautiful state.
It has wonderful people. It has a great history.
It's got a great location.
Wonderful educated workforce.
Yeah. And exactly, it can still come back. People have to be convinced that things are not going to keep getting worse and worse. And I think that what pushed GE over the edge, I'll tell you exactly what pushed them over the edge was, there's been a proposal for what's called a unitary tax, which says if you do business in Connecticut, we're going to claim the right to tax your operations all over the country.
Yeah.
And
even if you're manufacturing engines in Seattle,
I mean, what a disincentive to be in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And the governor assured GE that it would never pass. Passed anyways, and the governor, rather than stand up to his own party, signed the bill. And GE said, what is coming next?
Yeah.
And everybody that looks at Connecticut, we had the biggest tax increase in our history in 2011. We had the second biggest tax increase in our history in 2015. And now, as you said at the beginning, we're back there with another $3 billion debt, the same level of debt that we had in those other 2 times. And so it's saying, I could absorb that hit, and I could absorb the hit after it, but I can't take the next one, and how many more are coming? So what's the answer? You've got to have different leadership. There's the people that are doing it believe in what they're doing, Marty. I say this about
it's almost like a religious belief.
Well, listen, it's a belief like this. They bled people. Doctors bled people for thousands of years, right? And you think, how could they do that? But one of the reasons they do it is because, let's say you've been a doctor for 30 years, and you say, geez, all these people I bleed, they're dying. Maybe I'm hurting them. You couldn't even admit that possibility. Yeah. How could a Democrat who spent his whole life pushing this agenda wake up one morning and say, gee, maybe I've spent 30 years destroying my state? You've got to stick with their crazy ideology. So the only answer we have, we're not going to change those people's minds. We've got to vote them out of the office. Yeah. And we've made progress. To get up to 1818 in the Senate,
that's big.
Was progress. We're only down a few seats in the House. If we could get a new governor next time, the trouble next time is we're going to have a different Democrat, and he's going to say, oh, that was Dan Malloy. That wasn't my fault.
So, okay, forgive me for not knowing this. I ought to. But when is the governor, when do we have to get someone?
We got, that'll be next year's election, 2018, fall
November
of 2018.
2018, the Republicans got to get behind. Are you going to run for governor?
No.
I thought that's why you were on the show, to announce that you were going to launch your campaign.
I'm on the show to say I'm not running for governor of Connecticut.
Only someone who's running for governor would say he's not running for governor. You see what just happened?
I'm going to spend time with my family and discussions with them. Well, here's what's interesting. In Detroit, it was a lot of the union legacy costs that dragged down Detroit, right? As well as a lot of corruption, all the rest.
Yeah.
And the courts there said, look, you have to declare bankruptcy before you can restructure all this debt.
Right.
Well, there was a ruling this week in California. It's pretty interesting. A ruling in California this week that said that there's a reasonableness to some of these contracts and salaries. In other words, people get in office, have all their cronies vote them a really ridiculous salary that's not competitive, and you can't say it's justified. And so there's like a reasonableness clause that's being applied to some of the expenditures in California.
Right.
That's big, 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 because their debt burden, I mean, I think the Connecticut debt burden is actually $100 billion, including legacy costs. And then you go to California and the numbers skyrocket. So if you can restructure some of these union contracts and legacy costs, I mean, think about it. If you're a police officer or a fireman in Connecticut, age 50, retire, start your second career, we go, what, 80% of the pension?
20 years in and you're golden.
Yeah.
You're fully funded.
Now, most of that has changed now, and there's contributions to IRAs, right, is most of it. I think most of the pension obligations are fading, aren't they?
No, it's been modified, but it's still not. It's still not the the defined contribution plan. Yeah. So it isn't even for current employees. It's not where it needs to be. But you're right that one of the dangers is if the unions don't make some sort of accommodation at some point. The state declares bankruptcy, which I don't think is an outrageous possibility in a certain number of years, or some kind of decision is made like that by a court that says this is not a sustainable thing and we're going to let you off the hook, and then you might be in a much worse position. This is something that they ought to be willing to work out with us rather than have it fall apart and end up with nothing.
So in Greece, when they restructured the debt, bondholders got 30 cents on the dollar. When they restructured the debt in Detroit, the bondholders got 10 cents on the dollar.
Is that right?
Yeah. Wow. It was absolutely, and it was scorched earth. They got nothing. So in Connecticut, we're going to have to wake up and start to, we won't. I mean, they're going to sink the ship. And in the meantime, all the Democrats that perpetuated it their entire life, they got rich off of it. I mean, you look at a guy like Harry Reid. How does he go into the Senate relatively poor and walk away with $45 million on his salary?
Yeah.
Can anybody explain that to me? It's just gaming the system and corruption. They're not held accountable to insider trading laws.
Caller, quickly, do you have a question or comment?
Marty, I want to speak directly to the senator. And Senator, I want you to hear me loud and clear.
There is global warming.
You represent me in government. And you said that you don't believe, or you don't believe or not believe in global warming. Well, I'm ashamed of the fact that you aren't smart enough to understand that if you want to find out the answer to a question, you ask an expert. And the experts at the National Academy of Sciences and the experts at NASA and the experts at NOAA and
the Pentagon. Get your talking points right. The Pentagon. Throw that in there.
The Pentagon as well, because...
Thank you. Come on. I got the same thing from the DNC. Get to your talking points. The Pentagon, 98%. It's settled science. The hockey stick. Come on. Go to your talking points.
And what bothers me is the state representative doesn't have the wherewithal to know enough.
Cut them off. It's easy.
You might want to mention the elevator not going to the top.
Yeah. Let's talk about shadow people, Rich. Come on. Let's...
For me, you shouldn't be allowed to run for dog catcher, never mind vote on anything.
Hey, this is the interesting thing.
Okay, all right, Rich,
Marty,
I got it. Thanks for the call.
That's the bottom
Don't
line.
never leave out the Pentagon, though. That helps you.
But to say I shouldn't be allowed to run.
Yeah, no,
because
Rich
I don't
says.
believe what it is that I'm supposed to believe.
Exactly.
And
The thought police are out there, and they'll come after you.
And it's the national...
Because you're unscientific, don't you know?
It's the National Academy of Science. Okay, what's that? That's an association of scientists.
Right.
It's like the National Academy of Carpenters. So if the bureaucracy of science tells me that I'm supposed to believe something, then I'm not permitted to run for office unless I believe it. And I'm not even arguing about it. I'm just saying, I don't know. And I really feel, there's certain historical questions. Who shot JFK? I think maybe when you die, you get to go and find out the answers to these questions.
It was Lee Harvey Oswald.
I suspect.
A communist, by the way.
But I feel like I could spend hundreds of hours reading about all these different
the grassy
conspiracies,
knoll and all.
And I'm never going to know any more than I know about it. And I feel on any issue like that, I had this experience. I'll say quickly. When I was elected in 1980, when I was sworn in 1985, there had been a fight between optometrists and ophthalmologists about what drops the optometrists got to use. and it's always these legislative territorial fights. And I thought, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And I talked to one side and the other, and I took notes, and then they brought an expert in, and then the other side brought an expert in. Then they were bringing in these professors. And so at the point at which you sit down, and the one professor says, no, these should never be used, and the other professor says, oh no, it's perfectly okay, I think, well, what am I supposed to do? How am I going to, if the professors can't figure it out, how am I supposed to figure it out? And so that is one of the problems you have as a legislator, incidentally, because you have to kind of admit, at a certain point you say, well, what I say now is, I'm a conservative. I'm not changing it unless I'm convinced it should be changed.
Well, not only that, but what Rich is just silly, and it's annoying when he calls in. But when he fails, it's kind of a disgrace. But what he always fails to acknowledge is that there's always a money trail, right, for decision making and everything that goes on in the world. And every time he quotes this litany of people that are supportive of this, mystical global warming nonsense, he's naming all the people that have either been appointed by the liberals and Democrats to hold these positions. The head of NASA, where does he come from? Oh, let's see, appointed by Obama. Or the people supporting it have the most to gain, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So how do you ever get money for like going to the moon? Say, oh, there are men up there. Or we've discovered life up there. Oh, let's go do that. How do you get money for to be a weatherman? Oh, forecast tons of storms. How do you get money to study global warming?
Yeah,
Terrify people.
You
and here's what I love. You get these nut jobs on TV, and they say, "We're going to have floods and famines, droughts." Well, which is it?
Yeah.
Are you going to have the flood?
No, but that's,
are you going to have the drought?
The beauty of it.
That's changing. Yeah, that's called weather. It changes.
No,
Rich, wake up.
It's no longer global warming. It's climate change, which you got to get your talking points right. It is climate change. Okay, potpourri. Final round. This is the lightning round. We're starting ahead. There's some issues. By the way, we talked about the budget. We talked about the Senate being 1818 and the drowning man and the regionalization. I thought that was really good too. But what are some large issues? This guy, he's loquacious and large issues.
Joe has this incredible ability to boil things down to bite-sized pieces that everybody can digest.
I only have time for bite-sized pieces on this show.
Okay, thanks.
In the last 8 years,
yes,
the Obama administration has seized 865 square miles of land and put them under the domain of the federal government.
Right.
For you geography buffs out there, that's 3 times the size of Texas. What are your thoughts?
It's amazing, isn't it? When I saw that headline, 3 times the size of Texas. And of course, it's not a big issue here because, again, like we were saying before, there's no land for them to seize. It's not like there's they're going to make any national parks. It is a huge issue. When I talk to conservative legislators from other parts of the country, it's one of the very biggest problems that they have. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's a ridiculous idea. And Doc, again, what is the federal government doing getting involved in these issues to that extent? It always starts with good intentions. Gee, we should have these national parks and so forth. And then it gets pushed and pushed and pushed, and it takes on other purposes. Mm-hmm. And all our problems would be solved. There's only one solution to all our problems, which is obey the Constitution. Make the federal government back to what it was supposed to be. Another pendulum that has to swing back. I don't know how much you can go back in that direction, but we have to stop the encroachment of the federal government and then start to reverse it. And again, that's only going to happen when you elect people that are determined to do it. I don't think there's any way to do it by changing the rules. We need legislators that will do it, and we need judges that will respect the Constitution.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Your witness.
Okay, so we're going down. There's a potpourri of things. We want to talk a little bit like large thing. This Russian thing, this Russian hacking thing, which is in the news, as well as the video that I opened the show with. Pretty much every news show started with that this evening. The Russian hacking thing, the thing I love is this Podesta, right? He was like the head of the DNC. They go to the WikiLeaks guy. He was on Hannity, and they interview
Julian
him.
Assange.
Julian Assange says, a 14-year-old could have hacked into this guy's account. Are you ready for this? All you brilliant Democrats out there, the head of your party, the head of the campaign, all you brilliantly smart pro-science guys, do you realize what his password was for his super secret account? The password was, are you ready for this? the word password.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make this up. And they lose the election, and the head of it says, well, how did he get into my emails that shows that we totally stabbed Bernie Sanders in the back, totally. That lady who got the questions and gave him to Hillary Clinton before the debates, all this nonsense, all this corruption comes out. Down in Brazil. All this comes out, and it's because his email password was password. I mean, this is like, he points out, oh, it was the Russians. We got to expel people. We got to put special forces on the borders. It was the Russians. The only way it can explain how we lost this election, it was the Russians. Well, it's kind of ridiculous.
Well, again, it becomes an article of faith. Russian hacking.
Russian
if you
hacking.
don't believe it's Russian hacking, how do
you're
you know
a denier. You're a Russian hacking
exactly.
denier. Yeah.
Well, and the head of the NSA is what, John Clapper, right? So he was the guy that sat before Congress and said, without a shadow of a doubt, guaranteed the NSA is not collecting metadata on American citizens without a warrant.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Oh,
and then Snowden comes out and exposes the entire thing. Yeah. Now we're supposed to believe this guy that the Russians were behind it, and now the FBI is coming out saying, yeah, actually the Russians weren't the hackers.
Yeah.
Now the whole thing's changing. They passed on hacked information, to the press.
Yeah.
Like it had to go through Russia first somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, so to be more credible, I don't know.
We risk global nuclear war with the Russians,
and that's because this guy had the word password as his password.
Yeah.
I'm no genius for the computer, but that doesn't seem like the. And then not to mention that Hillary Clinton puts all this stuff on a private server that's in a closet in a bathroom of someone's thing. So we'd love to have this on if we could, because I got a bunch of other memes.
They're ready.
That would be good. No, it's not a video. It's just a still photo. So yeah, there's a bunch of them. Yeah, looking back, you have to wonder, how did the Russians trick down in Brazil into giving Clinton the debate questions? That's the Russians. The Russians did that. And I got a couple more, but keep going.
I don't understand
this
why
one
there's such a
captures.
determination.
This one kind of captures it. These are all stills, by the way. These aren't the thing, but it's the Russians. It must be the Russians. What is it? Oh, the downfall of the corrupt Clinton gang. It was the Russians. It was the Russians, she claims. But go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know why suddenly the Democrats are so determined for us to have problems with the Russians.
Yeah, I mean,
I've always had my qualms about Donald Trump. I certainly supported him given the situation.
Yeah.
But the fact that he wanted to have a good relationship with the Russians did not seem to be something that worried me. Let's say that was.
But it was the Russians' fault that my corruption was exposed. It was the Russians.
Well, I think it all comes down to the fact that the overwhelming victory for Donald Trump, and it was not a landslide. People want to say, hey, this is a landslide. But when you go back over the last 48 elections or 50 elections, this was like the 46th biggest electoral college win. I mean, it just wasn't, it was not a landslide. But it was a repudiation of Obama. He ran for the last year saying, vote for Hillary and you essentially get me for 4 more years.
Yeah.
It was a repudiation of everything Obama was, and he cannot accept the fact. He's doing everything he can to discredit Trump and saying, unfair advantage. And wasn't Hillary saying we have to accept the results of the election before the election?
Yes.
But then, if we can put that meme back up, it was like rioting failed, the recounts failed, death threats failed, blaming the Russians failed. What's next, liberals? What's next?
They're going to challenge. Apparently, Congress is going to challenge the results of the Electoral College vote when they come before the Congress. Democratic congressmen are going to get up and start arguing that because they come and they have to be counted. I think that's counted in the Senate chamber or something, the vote from the individual states, and they're going to try to have a debate over that. They couldn't go further in trying to delegitimize the election at every single point after having gone nuts over Trump saying, I can't promise that I'm going to immediately accept the result.
Yeah.
Again, you can criticize Trump for it, but don't be such a hypocrite.
It says, Russia was doing things to try to influence our election. You mean like staging riots with paid protesters to defend or pretending to be outraged Americans?
So did you listen to Obama when he was being questioned about this theoretical hacking. So he's up there and he's given this little mini press conference and he says, and when it became apparent what was going on, I contacted Vladimir Putin and I said, you got to stop it. Stop it right now. Are you kidding me? Stop right now. Now, isn't this the same president that leaned forward in that little photo op with the live mic and says, tell Vlad that when the election's over, we'll be able to deal.
I will have more freedom.
Oh, geez.
Oh, and went after Romney for saying that the Russians were our strategic concern. Yeah.
But the best was like no foreign countries. Oh, you gotta, if you can put that back up. It says no foreign countries ever had access to my email server, and then afterwards, Russian hackers are clearly to blame for the release of the DNC of my private emails.
Think about the history.
I mean, which is it? It's just silly. It's just.
Hey, this is what the people need, is for politicians to pick a side and stick to it.
Yeah, stick to
Republicans
it.
and Democrats both.
No one hacked my emails, or they hacked it, and that's why I lost the election.
That delegitimizes an election.
We're better than this, people.
Well, the thing that fries my rear is the hypocrisy, too. America has spent the last 15 years trying to influence elections. Who tried to overturn the who was
Israeli
running in Israel?
Benjamin Netanyahu.
It was Obama.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he's over there meddling in everybody else's elections.
Yeah.
And if someone stepped into his path, it's like, oh, geez, can't have that.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me started on Israel. I got a million of these. But yeah, it's true. I mean, they totally stabbed Israel in the back here at the UN. He says, just one more thing for those of you who knew about Colombo. He says, how come this guy Trump, who you called Hitler all this past year, is the only guy defending Israel? Well, one more thing. Remember Colombo?
Oh, yeah.
You're old enough to remember that. And it's true.
Where'd you get that tie?
Yeah, where'd you get that? That's a beautiful tie. Yeah, one more thing. This Hitler guy, why is he the only one defending Israel? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's definitely an interesting time. I do want to close the show with this one little video, and we'll go out with this because this is basically I don't know. You didn't see it coming. The voters didn't see it coming. They laughed at Trump. They said, there's no way he's going to be elected, and they lauged. And this is what happened.
A run in 2016.
Do it. Look at me. Do it. I will personally write you a campaign check now on behalf of this country, which does not want you to be president, but which badly wants you to run.
Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke.
Is that people think that Donald Trump is a clown.
Donald Trump is a clown. I mean, does anybody seriously think that Donald Trump is serious
Anyways,
for president?
I gotta allow enough time to play the end of that video because it was. I got to because at the end it's really fun. So we'll close with that. Thank you for coming in. I want to thank my guests.
Always a pleasure.
I really appreciate it. We kind of fly by the seat of our pants here.
No.
Dave Streit, you're the man, the legend, and I'm glad everyone got the note that we're all wearing tweed jackets. Thanks a lot, and join us again next week on the Marty Heiser Show. I have no idea what we're going to do. You never know what videos are going to come up, but we always will give you the truth. Wasn't that our saying? How do we say that?
You always get the truth.
You always get the truth. We will never censor. Good night.
Good job, Joe. You seriously are fabulous.
This is one of their mobile kitchens that they actually